Hello and welcome. My name is Monica. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate, and I wanted to put this free workshop out there for ideally caregivers when it comes to the topic of suicidality. I will get into a little bit more why that is in a second, but I'm happy you're here. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you get something out of this, whether you are a caregiver of someone who's experiencing suicidality or whether you're a peer and you just happen to be finding this video. As I said, my name is Monica. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate, and I work with adolescents and families. I work with kids at a alternative high school, and I also work with families and adolescents in my private practice as well. I have been volunteering with youth for over 11 years. I love hanging out with middle schoolers and high schoolers. That's not everybody, but it is me. I find them really funny, very smart, and I always learn so much from our time together. So that's a little bit, I guess, about where my passion for the topic comes from and my expertise as well. I'm also a parent, so I can relate to those of you who are parents or caregivers of young people. My kids may not be teenagers yet, but this is certainly a topic we've had to broach sooner than I expected, and I was really grateful for the professionals who had prepared me for that and given me resources before that happened, and I hope to pass that along to you as well. So let me go over really quickly what this is going to be about. Again, this will be a really short, hopefully 25-minute workshop, and at the end, if you guys want to reach out, send me an email. There will be a website link below to do so. We're going to quickly define what suicidality means for the purpose of this little workshop. We'll talk about how to talk about it, how to respond when we find out that someone we love is suicidal, and furthermore, how we can support them after that. So what is suicidality? For the purpose of this, when I'm referring to suicidality, I'll be talking about all the experiences along this spectrum. Ranging from passive thoughts about ending one's life, which research shows us many of us experience in our lifetime, engaging in self-harming behaviors to cope, intent or plans to kill oneself, up to suicide attempts. Sorry, moved on a little bit fast there. That's everything I'm referring to today, and we can talk more about it as we go along. The topic of suicidality, if it hasn't come up already, chances are it will. Unfortunately, we're living in an age where it's highly likely statistically that your child will experience suicidality themselves or know somebody who is. It's in our media, it's in our books, our shows, right? Like, it's happening, it's around. Kids are hearing about it regardless of their age, so it can be something that we can kind of get ahead of and talk about if it hasn't already come up. If it hasn't, here's some tips of how we can prepare our family to talk about it. Expect awkwardness, right? If you're a parent or a caregiver, you have to initiate awkward conversations. That's just part of the job. It's going to be uncomfortable. Normalize that. Let yourself know that that's okay. And validate that this conversation is important enough to risk a little bit of discomfort, right? Name the weirdness with the person you're talking to. Start by saying, I want to talk about something with you. It might be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not going to take long. Can you just bear with me and we can talk about this? Keep it simple and communicate clearly, right? I included a little prompt in here. Do your version, right? Whatever your relationship is with the person that you're talking to and your guys' style of communicating, go off that. But here's an example of how I might directly talk about this with somebody. I want to talk to you about suicidality. You've probably heard about this or you've had friends talk about it, and I want you to know that if you ever struggle with thoughts about harming yourself or ending your life, you will not get in trouble for talking with me about it. My job is always going to be to keep you safe first. I care about you feeling unsafe in your own mind and body. The reason for some of that language is because it's very straight and to the point, right? This person knows exactly what you're talking about. Self-harm and thoughts about ending their lives. That's what suicidality is. They know that you care about them before it's ever been brought up. And they also know that they're not going to get in trouble for bringing it up, which is huge when you're talking to someone that you are responsible for, right? It's a hard thing to bring up. especially with our caregivers. Unfortunately and fortunately, how we respond matters. I have worked with youth for over a decade, and I've heard countless times that the way a caregiver has responded to someone informing them about suicidality or learning about it against their wishes is very, very impactful to that person. I want to validate for all of you that it's obviously very normal to feel afraid for our loved one when they bring this up or when we learn about them experiencing suicidality. Especially if you are a parent or a caregiver, we view it as our job, right, to keep that kid safe. So to hear that they are struggling with something of this magnitude can be very, very scary, and I've been there. Sometimes our well-meaning responses communicate a lack of care for our loved one, even though we don't mean to, of course. That can happen when we have a really big reaction and kind of take over and freak out. It can also happen when we have a small reaction and our kid perceives it as not caring enough. So I want to encourage you, this isn't a lose-lose. We're going to talk about some ways that we can come back to the conversation and also how we can prepare ourselves for the conversation. It's never too late to do it a different way, right? Here are some tips to help us succeed or repair these interactions around suicidality. Preparing ourselves for the conversation before it happens can be super duper helpful. I would recommend doing this just in case, right? Whether or not you think it'll ever come up in your home, it can't hurt to think through how you'd want to respond, what you'd want to say to that person, and also to kind of give yourself grace ahead of the moment to mess it up, right? It's not going to be perfect when it comes up, and that is okay. It's nothing you can't repair. Pause. When you learn this information, whether it's from this person directly or somebody else, which we will get more into in a minute, take a breath, regulate your own nervous system, right? If you don't have a practice to do that, before it comes up might be a great time. Or if you've already had this conversation and you feel it didn't go well or you want to improve, it might be a good time to work on some of those things or just kind of gain some of those tools in your own toolbox before you re-engage the conversation with the person. There are tons of easy searchable breathing techniques, right, that you can learn, that you can employ. If meditation is your thing, could be a 30-second, minute-long meditation. Prayer for some people is huge. Just lying on the ground can be really big. Putting your hands above your head, taking a deep breath, right? Any of those things that kind of help you slow down and regulate a little bit can be super helpful. I will also offer you a little mantra that can be helpful. A couple of those might be that good parents have kids who are suicidal, because that's true. Or this is really scary, but I can handle hard things for my kids. I'm sure you've handled hard things before. Suicidality is a very big, scary thing to comprehend, but it's really another one of those things that we can get support, resources in, and navigate together better than we think. If you need to repair, I would do those 2 steps as well. Pause and prepare yourself before re-entering into the conversation. Own what went wrong, and then state some of the things we just talked about before. Here's a longer example. I'm thinking about when you shared with me your suicidality. I was scared, and I didn't think through my response right away. I'm sorry if it felt like I cared more about my own feelings than what you were going through. I'm working on supporting you better, and you won't get in trouble for talking about your struggles with me. I care about you, and I want to support you in this. If you're getting to this point of the workshop and you're like, oh, but they might get in trouble, I hear you. Obviously, every parent is going to handle things their own way. The reason I throw that in there, and I throw this wording in here a lot, is that when we react to our kids in such a punitive state, right, like first, before hearing them and understanding them, they often feel more isolated and less likely to come to us in the future. Again, if you've done that in the past, it's not all ruined, don't worry. But the reason I would tell that person, you're not going to get in trouble for coming to me with this, is because it really is something that they're struggling with. It's not something that they're doing to us or doing for attention like people think. Um, Suicidality is a real thing. It can be a really big struggle, and oftentimes, by the time you find out about it, they've been struggling for quite some time. So it can be good to reinforce that you're not going to get in trouble next time you need to bring this up. I want to continue talking about this. Here are some tips and some ideas of things we can do once we learn that our person in question is suicidal. If they tell us themselves, first of all, that's a really good thing. That's a good sign. It probably means we have a decent enough relationship where they feel safe to bring those things to us. Admitting something like suicidality and asking for support is very vulnerable and can feel very, very risky. So if they brought that up on their own to you, whether you're a friend or a caregiver or a parent, that's actually a good thing. So do your best to reframe that for yourself. I know it's a hard thing regardless. Try to pause and prepare again if possible. And most importantly, keep your responses based on or focused on their support before getting support for yourself or how it's affecting you. That is my number one piece of advice for caregivers. Obviously, in the moment, if it doesn't go well, that's okay. But once you're aware of this and you're moving through it with your kid, you're definitely going to need support for yourself. You're going to need people in your corner that you can trust, whether that's a partner or a friend or someone in your community, your own therapist if you have access to one. You're going to need someone in your corner or a parent who's gone through it before, even an online support group, something to kind of ground you and help you feel validated and also supported as you navigate your feelings about this. I'm not telling anybody to not have feelings about it. As a parent, it's a very scary thing to hear and is a hard thing to accept and navigate. It can feel very personal, and it's okay to feel all those things. I would just very much encourage you to get the support of the people in your circle to help you with that, and prioritize that over accidentally or unintentionally kind of putting that responsibility on your kid because they're already struggling. I know that can be hard to comprehend sometimes. Know that you can come back later if you're not sure how to respond. It feels for a lot of people also very urgent, right? When you learn this about somebody, it can be very, very scary. If it feels like they're not in immediate danger by the time they've told you or how you found out, you can say something like this, thank you so much for telling me this. I care about you. I want to help you keep you safe. I need a little bit of time to think about this or how I want to respond or how I can help you, but tomorrow after school I want to talk more about this. Obviously, this is for somebody coming to you in a less urgent stance, right? At a time where it's not feeling like actual life or death in this moment, but rather something they wanted to let you in on or somebody else let you in on. Keep the conversation centered on their feelings and the support they need. Then elicit support for yourself afterwards to help you through this difficult stage. Kind of already hit on that, but I reiterated it because it's such good advice. If we learn from somebody else that our person is suicidal, that can be a trickier situation to navigate for sure. There are several reasons why this might happen. Many workers are mandatory reporters, especially with minors. So you could find out from your school, your child's school, you could find out from a therapist, another type of mandatory reporter like a social worker. Some states now that might be a religious person, like a religious leader or organization that you're affiliated with, because some of them are now required to report that. And it could be a friend of the person. Sometimes I have friends of youth who are suicidal, and those friends will contact the person's parents because they care about them and they want to keep them safe. So if that's you and you learned this from somebody else, here's a couple of things that I recommend. Pause and process before you see your kid next. It depends on the situation, obviously. If you got a call from the school and you're heading over there, on the way over there, that would be a great time to just pause, process, kind of let yourself know, like, okay, I'm going to get to unpack this in a minute. Right now, I'm just going to, try to stay regulated and get my kid home and safe, and then we'll address that next. if they are in the room with you, right, if you got called into a doctor's office or a therapy session, do your best to, same thing, hold your reactions for your own support system and listen intently. Again, no one's gonna nail this perfectly. It's okay. These are just ideas to let them swim around in your head before this happens, or if you're worried it'll happen again, or you just want to make repair with your kid, right? Again, good parents have kids who are suicidal. It doesn't mean it's a reflection of your parenting or your relationship with your loved one. That is the truth, right? Being suicidal is not synonymous with bad parenting or a troubled home life, right? It might not be the case for you. So there's no need to feel like it's a end of your relationship or dooming your parenting, right? It is a hard thing to digest, and it's okay to struggle with that, but you can remind yourself at least that many, many good parents have kids who are suicidal, and you are probably one of them. Honor their autonomy and how you found out. It's such a frustrating situation to have to be told something before you're ready, right? To have people let into something before you're ready. So if you have the capacity to just consider how your kid is feeling in that moment, it would be great to address that with them. I would say something like, man, I'm sure this is not the way you wanted me to find this out. I'm sorry you weren't given the chance to tell me yourself. I'm worried about you. I would still say that. I'm sorry you're struggling, and I want to be a support to you. It's okay to tell your kid that you're afraid, right? Just don't make them responsible for it, but it is true. It's scary. I will tell my kid that too. I've told him when things have come up and he said some of those scary phrases that, wow, that's a really scary thing for me to hear. Like, it's my job to keep you safe. I'm not going to let you hurt yourself like that. Like, what do you mean by that? And then we ask more questions, but it is scary. It's okay to name that as scary. You care about your kid and they can know that. Doesn't mean it's overwhelming for them. Again, you're never going to get in trouble for sharing these things with me, and I'm going to help you get the support you need. Not like a if you want it. I'm your caregiver, it's my job. So I'm going to get you support. Whether you like it or not, like, that's my job right now. How do we get them the support, though? That, of course, varies on who we're talking about in the situation. So I've got a couple of tips for you. I will say before we jump into this, obviously adolescents are pretty high risk for experiencing suicidality. That's for a variety of factors nowadays. You can look up some statistics on that. Youth who are LGBTQIA+ are at an extensive risk for experiencing suicidality and deep depression at some point, just due to the struggles that they face, the oppression they face all the time. So it's very important for them to have a support system as well. There are resources that are actually focused on certain populations, especially for LGBTQIA, because that's a population that experiences it at a heightened rate, and they feel safer, in their own circle with people who know what that's like. Unfortunately, youth who are in lower socioeconomic status are higher risk as well. Youth who use substances, whether that's drugs or alcohol. Obviously, folks with concurrent diagnoses, whether that's bipolar, schizophrenia, some of those bigger diagnoses that really require a lot of hands-on care, that can exasperate things. Certain medications can increase the risk, so just be aware of which areas your kids fall into and whether or not that increases the risk for them. On that end, though, there are protective factors, and I didn't put that in the slideshow, but I'd love to talk about a couple of them. Protective factors can be definitely a community, right, where they feel safe and protected and supported. So whether that be with friends, peers, an online group, online friends, clubs at school, having an adult who cares about them, who supports them, whether that's a teacher, a parent, a caregiver, a mentor, somebody of that nature. Being religious or spiritual can also be a huge protective factor for folks. Having hobbies, engaging in things they like, also decreased use of substances or a lack of use of substances can also be a protective factor. Those are just helpful things to know. All right, moving on. Best case, how we want to support this person is to elicit their support and collaboration. Hopefully you're in a place where you guys can work together to determine the next steps, depending on what's accessible to you, right, and what's around. So are they able to or willing to attend therapy sessions regularly if that's something you guys decide that they need? Do they need to re-up their medication or have a different medication? Is that something you need to initiate for them? And are they willing to make a safety plan with you? So if they are in therapy, that'll be the job of the therapist. They'll be working on that in session, and you will be included in that as well. If they're not in therapy, you can do some research on what's around in your area as far as support and resources and even just safety plan, coming up with a safety plan. As a therapist, I don't use safety contracts. I don't find that they offer clients a lot of autonomy. Even in something as scary as suicidality, I don't do contracts. To each their own. Do some research, but I don't use them. I will use safety plans, which involves the cooperation and collaboration of the person who is struggling with suicidality. We will come up together with who can you call, what are your resources, where can you go, it's kind of like, phases of intervention depending on what they're struggling with or how big it feels that day. So, yeah, what are your stage 1 interventions? Are you gonna take a bath or take a walk or, punch a pillow? Really, what are the things that help you that are easily accessible? What are the second stage things that are helpful? Who's in your corner? Who can you call? Who can you support? Or who supports you? Those things will all be in a safety plan. So if you do some research and you don't have access to therapy or a doctor or anything like that, that might be something that you guys can handle in your own community. Again, with support, I would definitely elicit as much support as you can. A medium level of intervention would be if they coordinated a plan with you willingly. I would make a backup plan and post it on the fridge and in their private place. So in their room or wherever, but also in a public space where you guys can all see it. The plan will have information about resources, just like I said, that they can use on their own, as well as emergency services and contacts to reach out to. That is something that, it'll be for them when they're alone, but it will also be in the public space so that other family members or yourself can just look at it and know okay, we already made this plan. I know what we're going to do when this is happening versus this. And you've all just kind of agreed. It just makes the whole interaction a lot more peaceful when that scary stuff does come up. Okay, as a last resort, I know some of you are wondering, what if things get really bad, things get really scary? What am I supposed to do? Here's what I'm trained to do, and here's what is an option, should you need it. If you're in a situation where the person is actively harming themselves and you physically cannot stop them and you're worried they're going to go far, or has threatened suicide and locked themselves away with access to the method of committing suicide, right? If they're in a bathroom with a bunch of pills and they've said that they're going to kill themselves by taking pills, or they're in a room with a gun or a weapon, at that rate, at that point, you can bring them to the emergency room. You can offer them that option. And if they don't want to do that, you can call 911 to be transported to the hospital. The hospital will do a temporary hold and do a mental health assessment, and sometimes they will involuntarily hospitalize depending on the situation. So be aware this could lead to involuntary hospitalization and a lot of trauma in the process. It's not always handled the best, and there's a typo in my thing. That's great. And it's best used only when you cannot physically keep them safe from themselves. So if they're super worried and you're super worried and you just feel like you're at your ends and you just need everyone to get through the night alive, that is an option. Again, I save it as a last resort for clients. I recommend it as a last resort to parents, but it is an option, and it does help in the moment to keep everybody alive. I will say that. Here's some resources. I am located in Washington State. That's where I hold my license. I don't have a ton of resources in other states, but you're welcome to reach out. Maybe I can connect you with some social workers or therapists in your area who do. But our national U.S. suicide hotline is 988. You can call or text that at any time. It is, to my knowledge, not non-carceral, which means you could be voluntarily hospitalized for utilizing that service, depending on what you share with them. So just be aware of that. Within Washington State, I know that Thrive Lifeline is a non-carceral mental health crisis support company organization, and they have peer support, and non-carceral meaning they haven't made a commitment to not involuntarily restrain or hospitalize folks who have mental health struggles. They used to have a hotline that was up all the time, but due to funding right now, they do not have a hotline available at the moment, but there's their website. I highly recommend you go check them out because they have great resources on there already, and they hopefully will have the hotline up again. So that'll be a good number to put on your safety plan or just save for yourself. The Washington One line is another peer support hotline. Peer support meaning they're not nurses, they're not psychiatrists, they're not therapists, right? They are volunteers who come to take those calls and those texts, and those are the hours and the phone numbers for those. Teen Link is a teen that's a peer support group, and they also have a bunch of resources on their website as well. They're available 7 days a week. From that, the hours may change, right? I put on here that all those resources availability is subject to change because that happens a lot in this field, especially a lot of these are nonprofit organizations who are running on volunteers and funding, so you never know what's going to be out there. I always recommend just doing a quick internet search if you're not sure, or if you have a community group like mental health facility in your area or a social worker or somebody who you can contact, an agency, like that might be a great place to just say, hey, I need resources on this. They're always in the know. They're always connected. Like I said, LGBTQI plus specific resources are there as well. The Trevor Project is a great one. They also have a hotline that I believe was not up when I went on their website just today at the time of recording this, but check out their website. They have tons of resources, and they have been great and highly recommended to me by many clients and clinicians alike. Trans Lifeline is I believe, peer-to-peer hotline. That's 24/7 in the US and Canada. You can call or text those numbers. All right. I tried to keep this so quick. I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Thank you for tuning in and watching this. Please know that I am available for emails if you have questions or you need other resources. I do my best not to gatekeep. Depending on the volume of emails, it might take me a little bit to get through, but I would love to be a support to you in that. My website link is there. There's a contact form. You can fill it out. It goes directly to my inbox. So feel free to reach out if you have more questions. I hope this was helpful for you, and thank you for being here today.